Hi and welcome. The clone stamp tool paints one part of an image over another part of the same image or over another part of any open document that has the same colour mode. You can also paint part of one layer over another layer. The clone stamp tool is very useful for duplicating objects or removing a defect in an image. Now it's different to the healing tools in so much as it does not perform any blending. It merely copies and pastes image pixels. So without further ado, let's get started. My name is Ken Fisher and this is LiveLink Training. Now in this video we're going to be exploring the clone stamp tool. Now don't forget, if you're a fan of the printed page, there is a free ebook to accompany the video. Just click the link in the More section under the video to download it. Right, let's dig in. Okay, so what are we going to learn in this video? Well, firstly we're going to identify and select the clone stamp tool. Number 2, we're going to load sample pixels onto a brush. Number 3, we're going to identify the difference between working in an aligned manner or in a not aligned manner. And number 4, we're going to repair an image using the clone stamp tool. Okay, in most cases image cleanup involves taking pixels from one part of your image and using them to cover up pixels in another area of the image. One of the most basic tools for this purpose is the clone stamp tool, which literally just allows you to copy pixels from one area of the image and drop them into another with no blending at all. Now the clone stamp tool really comes under the category of image repair. Now you can access it by clicking the icon in the toolbar, which is up here, or you can press the S key. Now let's take a brief look at some of the options available for the clone stamp tool. Now the first thing I do when I'm performing image cleanup work is to create a new empty layer so I can put my cleanup pixels onto that layer. And it doesn't affect the underlying background image, so it's working totally non-destructively. So I'm not actually changing the pixels of my original layer, just covering them up. So I can always go back to my retouch layer and make changes or corrections as needed, or drop it in the bin if it's no good. Now I'm just going to create my new layer, so I'm going to go down to the new layer little icon down at the bottom here of the layers panel, but I'm going to hold the Alt key down while I do it. And if I click, then it'll bring up the new layer dialog, and in here I can give it a name. I can set lots of options, but today I'm just going to give it a name and we'll say Retouch, and then I'll click OK. And there you see we've now got a blank layer to work on. Now one of the options in the clone source tool options bar, once we've got the tool selected, is the sample, and this is telling us where can we sample from. Well, if we were set to the current layer, it'd only let me sample from the current layer and it'll not let me do anything else. But if I select current and below, or all layers, what it'll do is it'll let me have this layer active and it will let me sample pixels but place the pixels actually on this retouch layer, so it doesn't do anything on the background. So it leaves me now completely a non-destructive editing workflow. Now this clone stamp tool is a brush, so up here in the options bar here we can actually, if we want, change the parameters of the brush. But what all I want to do for this exercise is really just select a circular brush, so I'm going to leave that circular. And I'm going to select a hardness of around 50%. Now I don't want it too hard because then you're going to see all the edges. They're going to become obvious. If I have the edge too soft, if I have it over here at 100, then what you'll start to see is the fuzzy edges around the brush will let you see some of the pixels underneath. You'll start to get it breaking through. So a good option is to set it around 50%, and then as I'm working, if I need to alter it, I can go back and change it. Now we've also got the size option here, and I can change it in here, but I generally don't. I'm a big fan of keyboard shortcuts, and a real favourite of mine for making the brush bigger and smaller is my square brackets. So my right square bracket will make my brush bigger on the fly, and my left square bracket will make it smaller on the fly. Now we can also change a variety of settings related to the clone tool with the clone source panel, and that's up here. And if I click on that, then it'll open up my clone source panel. Now I'm not going to go into detail here. I'm just going to show you one thing that I would change. Here what we can do is, if you're cloning at multiple points in your image, you can select and save 5 separate clone source points. Now the one thing that really freaks some people out, or they love it, is this show overlay. And what that does is that any pixels that you actually loaded onto your brush, so I'll just load some on just to show you. Now if we look at the brush, you can see that it's actually got the pixels loaded into it. And you can actually see it as we move it around. It like follows you around. Now some people find that really distracting. Now if that's the case, then all you've got to do is go into the clone source panel and turn off show overlay, and then you don't get anything in the brush head at all. And I think that's the way I'm going to work today. So I'll just close that down because I don't need it for the minute. Now we've got some blend modes. Well, we can actually set the blend mode of the pixels that we're actually putting over the top. But under most circumstances, what I'm wanting to do is cover the pixels up, not do a blend. So in the majority of circumstances, the blend mode here would be set to normal. And of course, my opacity, that would be set to 100%, and my flow to 100%. Now a line we're going to talk about in a little bit. We've looked at the all layers. That's why we need, so we can actually clone onto a separate layer. This end one, well, I haven't got a brush, I'm using a mouse, so I'm not really concerned with that one. This one can be important, and this is turn on to ignore adjustment layers when cloning. Now if you've got a multi-layer document that you're cloning on one particular layer and you've got adjustment layers above it, then technically if you clone some of those pixels, the adjustment layer is going to affect them twice. It's going to affect them first on the layer that they're actually on, and then it's going to affect them again on the layer that you're actually cloning the repair onto. So you're going to end up with having it affecting it twice. So if that's the case, what you can do is just click on this, and then it will ignore the effect of any adjustment layers. So you can basically just forget about it if you're using quite a few adjustment layers. So let's take a sample. So the way we take a sample and load a sample onto the brush, so let's say this area here we want to, is a bit of a distraction and we want to get rid of it, then I would hold the Alt key down, and you see I get a little target, and I can select where I want to get the pixels from, and I'm just going to click once with my left mouse button and then let go of my mouse button and let go of the Alt key, and I've now loaded those pixels onto my brush. And then if I move over the area that I want to clone out, and I can click or click and drag, and you'll see I can actually clone those pixels in. Now if you just see, there's a little cross, and that's where it's getting the pixels from. Okay, so I'll just undo that a couple of times. Right, and let's just zoom in a little bit. So let's imagine I want to get rid of these. They're a little bit of a distraction. So what I can do, I can get the brush, and normally you want your brush about the size, not much bigger than the bit that you want to get rid of. So something like that. And then I'll move to the side, and I'll hold the Alt key down, and I'll click. Then I'll let go of everything, and then move my mouse back over them and click, and I'll start dragging down. And you can see I've now obliterated them. It's not a particularly good edit, but that's what it does. I've moved pixels from here and put them down over the top of the distraction. And if I go and move me, you just switch my retouch layer on and off, you'll see that that's all I've done. I've just put those pixels over the top. Now we'll just go back a couple of steps just to take us back to there. So now what you've got to do with this tool is try a little bit to line things up. So here I've got a bit of a line, this shingle line and the sand. So what I'll probably try and do is to get half and half, something like that. And I'll Alt and click, and then I'll move up the beach a little bit, and I'll try and drag it over that bit to try and keep that line going. Now you can see the problem I've got is that little X now, that's where I'm getting the pixels from, and it's still getting the pixels from where the people are. So that's not particularly good. So let's just go back, we'll step backward, and we'll go a bit further back now. So I'll hold the Alt key down and click. And now when I get up here, when I click, you can see where that little X is. That's where they're getting the pixels from. So now I've got a bit of a safety net. So now I can go up this piece and hopefully get over the top of those before the X reaches them. And then let go. And that's not done a bad little repair around this bit. We've still got this bit to do. So I think what we'll try and go this top. Now we've got a divide between these rocks here and the shingle. So I'll go in the middle, somewhere like that. Again, hold the Alt key down and click to take a sample. Then let go of the key, let go of the mouse button. So long as I'm far enough away, let's click and drag a little bit over there. That's not bad. And then we've got a little bit in the middle here. So again, I'll make my brush a little bit smaller with the square brackets. I'll hold the Alt key down and click again to take a sample. And I'll just have a couple of clicks from there. I'll Alt click at the other side and have a couple of clicks in there. And we've got a little bit of repeating pattern going on here because I'm not doing any blending. I'm just taking the pixels and dropping them down. So sometimes you've got to keep an eye that you've not got any repeating patterns. And I have here, you can see I've got these two little bits here and there's another two there. And the way around that is just to go and get some other pixels. So I'll go a bit further down here. I'll Alt click and I'll just try and cover those bits up there. So at least I've got something it blends it in now. And that's a pretty good retouch really. So I've now got rid of those altogether, including the shadow. And it's all on the retouch layer. If I just switch off the background layer, you'll see that it's all the retouches here. And it's just directly over the top of the image. So we can't see it because our eye is looking down here. Okay, let's step backward a couple of times just to get rid of that. Well, maybe more than twice. Okay, aligned and not aligned, what's all that about? Well, we're looking at this little doohickey here, the align tick box. Now this defines the relationship between the source point and the destination point. So again, if I just use the square brackets to make that a bit bigger, let's say this is my source point. So if I've got a line ticked, which I have, and I Alt click, and then I move. Now if I click down here, you'll see that I'm actually creating a copy of those two chappies, which is what you want to do. And you can see if I move it a little bit that the little X is in the middle of one of them's back. I know it's hard to see. But now if I let go and I move up here, sometimes you would expect it that it will make another copy of the people. But if I click, it won't. It actually makes a copy of, well, the cliffs. And that's because the source point has moved with the destination point. So if I go and click up here now, you'll see that the source point is actually moved into the sky with me. So whatever I do, it moves with me. Now that may be fine. That's when you work in a line that the source and the destination point actually move together. There's a relationship between them. Okay, let's go back to the original. Now we'll do the same, but this time we'll turn off the align checkbox and see what difference that makes. So now I'll do an Alt and a click to sample those pixels, and I'll move it up the beach a little bit, and I'll click. And same as before, it actually makes a copy of the two little chappies. Now if I let go and move it up the beach a little bit more and click, it makes another copy of them. And if I go up onto the cliffs and click, it makes another copy of them. And you'll see if I just click there that the actual source point is staying exactly where it is, right on the original people. So as many times as I want to click, because I've now not got a line checkbox ticked, the alignment isn't there anymore. All that happens is where it was to start with, that's where it stays until you change it. So with the clone stamp tool configured, you'll be ready to get to work. As we've seen, the basic process is relatively straightforward. You move the mouse out over the image, adjust the brush sizes with the left and right square brackets. Generally speaking, you don't want the brush to be much larger than the object you're trying to remove, and in some cases you might want it a little bit smaller. Then we hold down the Alt key and left click to sample some pixels and put them on the brush. Move it over the area where you want to cover up and click or click and drag down. Now, of course, the real key to getting good results with a clone stamp tool is careful attention to detail and work zoomed in. Don't work at 100%. Zoom it in, and then when you zoom out, you'll not even be able to tell you've been there. If it does a bad job, then you've got your undos. You can go up to the Edit and Undo, and you've got Control and Z or Command and Z if you're on a Mac. And just with a little bit of practice, you'll be getting great cleanup results using the clone stamp tool. Now let's just have a go at just cleaning up a couple of little bits on this image. Now really, I know we hammered on a little bit about aligned and not aligned, but it doesn't really make any difference if you adopt a certain type of workflow with this tool, and that is to sample often. And this is really important because the pixels that I want might not be all in one place. And my workflow is to work with I would look at this as something like that, and I'd work on this in little sections. So I'd first go for this little shadow, and what we'll do is we'll just go just below the shadow. I'll Alt and click, and then I'll just cover up that little bit of shadow. Okay, now we'll go for this guy first. So you can do it in one big bit if you like, but I tend to want to work close in and do it in little areas. So again, I'll hold the Alt key down and I'll just try and get rid of his little bit there. And then I can hold the Alt key down at the top. So you see, I'm Alt clicking regular. So Alt click, Alt click. So it does help me to be able to get the right pixels in the right place. So here I've got a bit of a line I want to do there. And then we've got a bit of sand in there. And then I'll probably come back this way a little bit to get rid of that. And you can see we have got a few recurring pixels going on. And if that's the case, then what I'll probably do is have a little bit bigger brush. And then when I've finished, I'll sample from somewhere down here and just paint in a little bit of an area. And anywhere where there is a little bit of repeating pixels, which I've got some little repeating pixels here, I'll go right small with my brush, I'll zoom right in, and I'll just Alt and click and just put some little bits in that don't take your eye away, so you don't notice that you've got a lot of these repeating pixels, and that don't look bad. Okay, I want to get rid of this. Well, let's do that in one go if we can. So we can do a nice big brush. We'll see if that works. We'll go over here. We'll Alt and click and bring it back and click over. Well, I don't think that's bad actually. I think I'll leave that. Oh, we've got a little bit of a shadow going on down here. So again, square bracket to make my brush smaller. I'm going to go to Alt and try and find some very similar pixels just to click over the top of that. And I think our work here is done. Let me zoom out and Control and minus and just show you the job we've done. We've actually got rid of 3 quite large distractions. Oh, and I think I've spotted another one. Oh, just a minute. Let's have a look here. I'm just going to spacebar drag. Yeah, is that somebody else? I think it is. Okay, well, let's get rid of him as well. So I'm going to Alt click just near here. We'll try and put a few more rocks where he is there. And then we'll Alt click here and we'll give him a little bit of that. There we go. And there he was gone. And we've now got a people-free beach. Again, let's have a look at before and after. There we go. I think that's a pretty good job. Well, that's about it for this video about the clone stamp tool. I do hope you liked it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up or leave a comment under the video for me. If you can, share it with a friend or two. Don't forget to check out the More area under the video for the link to any download files or free ebooks. And please click the subscribe button so when I upload a new video, you are the first to know. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.